For centuries, the life of Jesus Christ has been a cornerstone of faith and mystery. While the Bible details his birth, ministry, crucifixion, and resurrection, there is a mysterious gap in his story: what happened during his so-called lost years. From age 12 to 30, the scriptures are silent, but ancient texts, legends, and alternative accounts hint at journeys that may have shaped his spiritual mission. Could the answers reveal a hidden truth the Church has long sought to keep secret? Join us as we explore the lost years of Jesus, uncovering theories that could rewrite everything we know about his life. The life of Jesus Christ is one of the most documented and revered stories in history, yet a glaring gap exists in the biblical narrative. Between the ages of 12, when he was found teaching in the temple, and 30, when he began his public ministry, the scriptures fall silent. This 18-year void has puzzled scholars, theologians, and believers for centuries. What was Jesus doing during these so-called lost years, and why does the Bible omit them entirely? One explanation is that the absence is intentional. Early church leaders, tasked with compiling the canonical scriptures, may have decided to exclude certain details to maintain a cohesive and controlled narrative about Jesus' divinity and purpose. By focusing on his miraculous birth, ministry, death, and resurrection, they presented a streamlined story that emphasized his role as the Messiah. However, this omission leaves many questions unanswered and opens the door to alternative interpretations of his life. Some suggest the lack of documentation was not just a matter of convenience, but a deliberate effort to suppress information that could complicate or challenge the established theology. If Jesus traveled beyond the borders of ancient Judea, encountered other spiritual traditions, or engaged in practices that did not align with Jewish customs, it might have been deemed too controversial for inclusion in the official narrative. The missing years have fueled countless theories, ranging from mundane explanations, such as Jesus living a simple carpenter's life in Nazareth, to extraordinary claims that he traveled the world, seeking wisdom from diverse cultures and spiritual traditions. As we unravel these theories, we begin to see a picture of Jesus that is both human and extraordinary, a man on a quest for enlightenment that would shape his role as the savior of humanity. One of the most intriguing theories about Jesus' lost years suggests that he traveled to the east, journeying to India, Tibet, or even Nepal. These regions were rich in spiritual traditions, offering profound teachings that could have influenced his understanding of divinity, compassion, and the nature of existence. Ancient texts, such as the life of Saint Issa, discovered by Russian traveler Nicholas Notovich in the 19th century, describe a figure who many believe to be Jesus, known in the East as Issa. According to these texts, Issa traveled extensively, learning from Hindu and Buddhist sages. The teachings attributed to him bear striking similarities to the parables and lessons found in the Gospels. For example, the emphasis on love, non-violence, and humility echoes the teachings of both Gautama Buddha and Jesus Christ. Could it be that Jesus' time in the East shaped his spiritual philosophy and prepared him for his ministry back in Judea? Skeptics argue that these connections are purely coincidental or fabricated, but the evidence is compelling. There are striking parallels between the Beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount and Buddhist concepts such as the Four Noble Truths. Additionally, certain aspects of Jesus' life, such as his fasting in the wilderness and his meditation-like prayers, align closely with Eastern spiritual practices. If Jesus did indeed travel to the East, it raises profound questions about the universality of spiritual truth. It suggests that the teachings of Jesus were not confined to a single cultural or religious tradition, but were instead the culmination of wisdom gathered from across the ancient world. This possibility challenges the traditional view of Jesus as a purely Jewish Messiah, presenting him instead as a global spiritual figure whose message transcends cultural boundaries. Another theory posits that Jesus spent his formative years in Egypt, a land steeped in ancient wisdom and mystical traditions. Egypt was home to some of the most advanced spiritual practices of the ancient world, including the Hermetic teachings and the mysteries of Isis and Osiris. These traditions emphasize the interconnectedness of all life, the power of transformation, and the journey of the soul, concepts that resonate deeply with Jesus' later teachings. The New Testament hints at Jesus' early connection to Egypt, recounting how his family fled there to escape King Herod's massacre of the innocents. While the Bible provides no further details about his time in Egypt, It is not unreasonable to speculate that he may have returned there during his lost years to study with sages and spiritual leaders. The ancient temples of Egypt, such as those at Heliopolis and Luxor, were centers of learning, where initiates were trained in the mysteries of life, death, and resurrection. Some researchers believe that Jesus' miracles such as turning water into wine, healing the sick, and raising the dead bear similarities to the magical and alchemical practices of Egyptian priests. If Jesus studied these techniques, it could explain the source of his extraordinary abilities. This connection might also account for the Church's reluctance to explore his ties to Egypt, as it could undermine the narrative of divine intervention and place greater emphasis on human learning and mastery. The possibility that Jesus was influenced by Egyptian mysticism invites us to reconsider the origins of his teachings. It suggests that his wisdom was not solely divinely inspired, but also shaped by the rich spiritual heritage of the ancient world. This perspective not only deepens our understanding of Jesus as a historical figure, but also highlights the interconnectedness of global spiritual traditions. The Essenes, a Jewish sect that flourished during the Second Temple period, have long been associated with Jesus and his teachings. Known for their ascetic lifestyle, communal living, and devotion to prayer, the Essenes were considered spiritual outliers in their time. Some scholars believe that Jesus spent his lost years among the Essenes, learning from their practices and incorporating their teachings into his ministry. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in the mid-20th century, provide valuable insights into the beliefs and practices of the Essenes. These texts reveal a community deeply committed to righteousness, ritual purity, and a messianic vision of the world. Many of their teachings echo the themes found in Jesus' sermons, such as the emphasis on love, forgiveness, and the coming of the kingdom of heaven. If Jesus was indeed influenced by the Essenes, it could explain his rejection of materialism and his focus on spiritual transformation. The Essenes' practice of communal living may also have inspired his teachings on generosity and the sharing of resources. Furthermore, their apocalyptic worldview aligns with Jesus' warnings about the end times and the need for spiritual preparedness. The possibility that Jesus was an Essene, or at least heavily influenced by them, challenges traditional perceptions of his uniqueness. It suggests that his teachings were part of a broader spiritual movement within Judaism, rather than a wholly unprecedented revelation. This connection deepens our understanding of Jesus as both a product of his time and a transformative figure who elevated the spiritual discourse of his era. Theories about Jesus' lost years challenge us to reconsider what we know about one of history's most influential figures. If he traveled to the East, studied in Egypt, or lived among the Essenes, it suggests that his teachings were shaped by a rich tapestry of spiritual traditions. These possibilities do not diminish his divinity or message, but rather enhance them, showing that truth and wisdom are universal, transcending cultural and religious boundaries. The Church's reluctance to acknowledge these alternative narratives may stem from a desire to preserve orthodoxy and avoid controversy. However, as more evidence emerges, it becomes increasingly difficult to dismiss the idea that Jesus' life was far more complex and multifaceted than the traditional narrative suggests. Embracing these possibilities could lead to a more inclusive and expansive understanding of spirituality, one that honors the diverse paths to enlightenment. Ultimately, exploring the lost years of Jesus is not about undermining faith, but about seeking deeper truths. By acknowledging the gaps in his story and considering the wealth of wisdom that may have shaped him, we can gain a richer appreciation of his life and message. In doing so, we honor not only the historical Jesus, but also the universal spirit of love, compassion, and transformation that he embodied.